All right, guys, so here is my setup. I've got a backdrop and I've got my model. I'm ready to set up some lights. It's great for showing depth, great for showing mood, kind of setting the tone for your character. So what we're going to get into is using certain combinations of lighting to kind of create more impact in in the character you've created. So here we go. Let's start with going to create and lights. We're going to use two different types today. We'll have spotlights and area lights. Spotlight's going to be a little bit more focused, and I'm going to start with that one. So I'm going to click, select that one, and it's here, but it's hidden behind this. So I'm going to use this and kind of move it out of the way. It's really tiny, so I'm going to scale it up, and I'm going to rotate it. The cone is basically representing the light. The arrow is the direction the light is going to be shining, and I want it to be shining on my character's head. So I'm moving it back. This cone shape can be adjusted by the cone angle here. And it shows me I have a spotlight. Under my attribute editor, I've got intensity, so I can make things brighter. Cone angle is basically how wide do I want that to be and how focused do I want it to be. So you got a lot of options here. And then drop off, how quickly from the end of this cone do you want it to just fade out to nothing? I don't want any drop off. I want it to actually hit the character here. Now, first thing to remember to know in the check in your settings here is that we are working in a certain kind of renderer. And what that means is you have render settings up here. And I'm going to click on this one that says display render settings. And this window pops up. And I want to make sure that this says render using Arnold Renderer. And so open that window up and select Arnold Renderer. Under Arnold Renderer, you'll see, or under that, you'll see System. And for best performance, try using GPU. If GPU doesn't work, then you'll have to work with CPU. GPU, there are some kind of older versions of graphics cards in these computers, so try to use that if at all possible. Now we have Arnold Render, and it's going to try to do it with the GPU. I'm going to close this for now. Now, I have a light added here. Let's see what happens now. Kind of gives a basic view of what that could look like. If I turn on the shadows, there's a cast shadow as well. What setting up that render view does is basically gives us this option right here. I would prefer using this as it doesn't slow down our computer so much. So when I hit play, I don't see anything pop up. So what that tells me is that I have to adjust my lighting so it shows up better. The intensity is only at 1. So I'm going to crank this up and see what happens here. I can continue on. I'm still rendering it out, but still nothing's showing up. So what I'm going to do is crank the intensity up past the slider. And I'm going to put something like 500. Now something's starting to show. Okay. I'm going to go up to 1,000. Now more is showing. I'm going to try the same thing, 2,000. Now I'm getting some impact. And I'm getting some shadows and some depth here. This is what kind of a preview of what the render mode would look like. So I can do a couple different ways. If I select this one, it's just going to kind of give me just render the current frame. So if I close this out, sometimes it tends to be less taxing than having it constantly going all the time. So I definitely recommend doing something like that instead. Making some changes. Don't leave this window up. Make some changes to your lights and then render the current frame. All right, so with that done, I'm going to select the color here, and I'm going to use what's called complementary colors for this. Those are any colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So right now I have kind of this red area selected, but this little pointer needs to be over here. I'm going to choose that for my first color, and we can see what that looks like. I can hit play, and now I can see kind of what that looks like there. if I wanted to, I can still intensify that light even more. And that varies depending on your particular model and how big everything is here. Now, the light is actually here. This just helps me see where it's at. So I could move this right up close to his head and test it out there and see what that looks like. Much brighter. You don't see that light. You only see the effects of the light in the scene. So I've got one spotlight there. Now what I want to do is try out a different type, which is an area light. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scale it up and move it out of the way. And this one has a different purpose. It is to kind of flood a wide area with a soft light, not something that's going to be super intense. So I'm going to put this kind of covering the other side of his face, but I want it to be a different kind of light. I want it to be the complement of that red. And again, proximity is going to matter depending on how large your object is. So I'm going to move it up pretty close. I have the same kind of settings here. I'm going to go ahead and crank this up to about 1,000. And yours might be different. So adjust it to what your scene needs to be. My spotlight was that red color. I want it to be, my complementary is going to be across from that. So over here somewhere. I'm going to make sure that that little dot is on the right thing here. There we go. And I'm going to test it out. Hit play here and see what happens. It's kind of shiny, right? If I don't want that to be shiny, I need to change something with my model. So I can see like a reflection of the light. Plus it's keeping everything dark around it. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go to my model. I'm going to go to some of the settings for my basic head model here. And I'm going to change the materials. It says blend, basic head blend. And I'm going to change the reflectivity down to 0. I don't want it to be reflective. I'm going to change the eccentricity up maybe about halfway. You can see the preview up here. It doesn't make it glossy, but it does give a little bit of shine to it. So I'll see what that looks like now. Hit play. Now it looks nice. I'm getting a better reaction from the colors and the lighting now. Now your character has more detail on it. It's going to definitely show off a lot more that way. Now that looks nice, but I have this black void back there. And I'm going to complement that with another blue light, but mostly focused on the backdrop. So I'm going to take this light. I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard. And I'm going to grab any one of these controls and click and drag it away. And it clones it. And I'm going to put this one kind of more towards the back. Sorry about that. Back of the backdrop. So I've got another one back there. It's cloned, exact same as what this one is, but this one's more focused towards the backdrop. And your proximity and the strength of your lights is all relative to your scene and your model. So it might be different from what I'm doing. Let's see what this looks like. There we go. I can see nice depth now. And so play around with this and with these ideas. One thing I would adjust with this spotlight is this shadow right here. I don't like how it's so tight on that. So let me go to that light and maybe see how it clips off the shoulder there. Maybe back that one away a little bit. Now I can see it fairly does a good job of showing that. I could even bring the intensity down. I want a good balance. Kind of two complementary colors kind of bouncing off the same model. This is a great setup for portfolios and showcasing a model that you've created. So this is a great start for this. Got that nice smooth bend in that backdrop, so it's seamless. There's nothing that shows. It's kind of a nice modeling technique that we use in photography as well. So trying to make these things present well is very important. So these are the basics. I want you to have at least a 3-light setup using complementary colors. Play around with spotlight and area lights and see what you can do to make it work for you. And that is it for now. See y'all next time.